Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans dripped in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on our channels and on X. We finally got a series under our belts as we just came from Houston. 3-game set. Mets did not do fairly well offensively. Lost 2 out of 3 to the Houston Astros, but we start a new series in South Beach against the Marlins, and we got that all covered today. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. The offense was not good at all. Let's just call a spade a spade. The offense wasn't good at all. The pitching held the fort down, and they only came away with 1 win. And that needs to change in Miami against the Marlins. I'm excited. I was really hoping for a game yesterday, and then I remembered that it was the off day. But you know what? A little bit of time to recuperate, especially from you with doing it big down in Houston, Texas at the Mets games. I mean, I know the drinks were flowing, good food, good everything down there in Texas. So hopefully you're rejuvenated. 6:40 start time, a little bit unusual, but a lot to talk about in this pregame stream. Appreciate everyone being here. Smash the thumbs up and subscribe if you want more pregames, post games. We are live tonight as per usual. Now that Rob is back and it's not the weekend, so I don't have any other activities. Let's do a post game. Why not? Win or lose, we'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got some normal pre-games now, so it ain't 3-4 hours before. It was just a little hectic during that series because I was in Houston and I kind of just said, I gotta leave. So that's that's how it goes. But normal start times for pre-games, hour or so before the game. And look, we got to get started with the quick recap of the series in Houston. There were some good things, there were some bad things, and scare. It basically looked like April of last year. Like that's how scary this offense looked. I believe we were 2 for 21 with runners on base, and that's not going to cut it. I don't care if you're playing Houston, if you're playing Miami. It really doesn't matter. You face a team and you go 2 for 21, you're probably going to lose the series. It's just not the way to go about it offensively. And unfortunately for us, we pitched well enough to win every single game. And we pulled out one, from our chinny chin chin, and that wasn't even impressive, even though we saw Juan Soto's first home run. But other than Juan Soto, there was nobody that really hit at all. Juan Soto did everything. He walked, he got a couple of hits, he got a home run. He was the only one that really did anything. And, Nimmo was a no-show. Lindor was a no-show. Alonso was a no-show. It was just a big zero from a lot of these guys that we were counting on. And, if it wasn't for one hit from Juan Soto in the first inning on Saturday, we would have got no hit. And if it wasn't for Jose Siri, doing something on the base paths, we probably wouldn't have scored either. So, Chris, give me your thoughts about the Houston series, and what did you take out of that series as a whole coming into today?
I took that it was the first series of the season. That's what I took out of it. Because we've been talking about this lineup in terms of the runs that they should be producing. the quality at bats that they should be producing. The runners in scoring position metrics, like you said, were unacceptable. And I don't expect it to repeat again for, maybe a series here and there this season. But by and large, this season, that should never happen again because they looked like lethargic, lazy at bats. And I don't think that's the characteristic of this lineup moving forward, regardless of what the personnel are, because we have to talk about today. Lindor, congratulations on the baby. He's available off the bench. We'll talk about it. But again, he's not starting. And you see Starling Marte's name there in that leadoff spot. So, yeah, it was a whole combination of bad at bats. The post game solo that I did that you weren't able to do, I believe that was Saturday, talking about just doing the simple things, right? We've played baseball. If you move a runner over, right, with nobody out on a guy on second base, moving him over via a pulled ground ball or a sacrifice fly will get you high fives in the dugout every single time, because a man on third base with less than 2 outs, that next guy should be able to get that run in. So when you have an offense that is struggling like that, trying to manufacture runs, and you have the other side of the team holding it down in terms of the pitching, the bullpen was fantastic. And honestly, outside of a little bit of a lackadaisical start from Clay Holmes, who wasn't great, but wasn't terrible, the pitching held it down. Yeah. When you have an offense that is struggling to put runs across the board, you have to play small ball at that point. You have to do those little things, right? And I know that we get distracted sometimes in today's day and age of baseball in 2025 by the home run, the double, and the strikeout. Again, I said all this in the post game, so I'm kind of repeating myself here in this recap. But if you are going to struggle in the early parts of the season, we're not going to overreact, but we're going to expect, at least from these major leaguers that got to this point doing the small things, we could presume, right, and assume to do those small things yet again to at least scratch some runs home. Yeah. So it was disappointing because, again, like you said, the Mets were in a position to honestly sweep that series. At the minimum, win that series 2-1. And that's the most frustrating thing is. So I don't think it's anything mechanically. It's definitely not anything mechanically. I think that you can honestly say that, unless you're the New York Yankees, that, the pitchers could still be ahead of, the hitters. And I do have to get your take on the torpedo bats as well, as we are going to see a new wave of those bats coming into form. But, and I'll give my take on that when we get to it, but I'm not panicking, Rob, to be honest with you. Those were terrible at bats. Those were terrible games by the offense outside of Juan Soto. It was Juan Soto, the bullpen, and the starting pitching versus the Houston Astros. The rest of the team needs to take shape. They need to take form. Brandon Nimmo especially, right, in that 4 spot. If he's going to continuously be batting 4 or 5, we need Brandon Nimmo to produce. Personally, when we get to this lineup, I thought today was going to be a great time to move Nimmo back into that leadoff spot, but Mendoza opts for Starling Marte. Nimmo's got to get it figured out over there. Yep. So I'm not worried. I'm not panicked, but definitely some things to definitely improve on.
Yeah, to put it in a few words to recap it seemed like they tried too hard. Like anytime they had opportunities to score runs, it seemed like they were completely swinging for the fences. Like how many guys struck out with first and second, 1 out, nobody out, guy on first with 1 out, nobody out. It just seemed like they couldn't even get a runner over at all. I think they got 1 sac fly in the series. Like it was opportunities there. Just a base hit would have scored 2. A sac fly would have gotten a run. They couldn't even do that. Was it opening day, if I'm not mistaken, where they had the bases loaded with 1 out, or maybe it was a Friday they had bases loaded with nobody out, and they did nothing. You just can't you can't have an offense that goes complete 0 in series, because you have to be perfect if you're a pitcher for the Mets, and that's not how you go about it. You have the bullpen throwing 10 innings in this series, and they put up no runs. You have to win those games, and you give up 3 runs, 2 runs, 1 run. You should win at least 2 out of 3, and they got to step it up. And you brought it up with the torpedo bats. By the way, it didn't help Lindor because he was using them in this series as well. So Exactly. It wasn't just the Yankees. Look, they faced terrible. Besides Peralta, they faced terrible pitching. And they were at Yankee Stadium with the wind blowing out. So I'm not overreacting to the torpedo bats. It's not illegal. It's very much in the rules of baseball. I think baseball will be doing something probably in a few weeks when more teams start to use it. And you're going to see the offenses probably get a lot better. But it could come with better weather. It was just a perfect storm when it comes to the torpedo bats, and basically most of the Yankees using it. Even though Aaron Judge was using a regular bat and he had 3 home runs in one game and 4 in a series. So I'm not overreacting to it. Look, the Yankees. Look, they didn't use it. The only thing I found weird was that they weren't using it during spring training, which was kind of odd. They were using them on the backfields after games, before games, during batting practice. So that was kind of fishy. Like I read a story. One of the Yankees beat reporters, or one of the Yankees, one of the reporters that covered the Yankees did a small story that didn't get much notice about it, where he stayed after a game and they were on the backfields taking batting practice with those bats, but weren't using them in game during spring training. So that was a little odd. And you were like, why wouldn't they use them during the game? That obviously you would get better experience, but it doesn't bother me at all. Because look, if the Mets would have had them and they would have went on a crazy 30 runs in 3 games, we would have been jumping for joy. But I'm not overreacting, because by next week, most players are going to be using them, and a lot of them are already using them around the league. So I don't care. The Yankees it was just a perfect storm with the Yankees.
And some players don't even want to use them. I mean, Lindor tried it out. Like you said, it didn't bode well for him. Maybe he's going to continue with it and just, get a feel for it. But everyone's saying, everyone's going to the rule book and searching it up. It's well within the limits, like you said. We see this at lower levels of baseball all the time, especially with like metallic bats, right? There's so much variability in barrel size in metallic bats, especially that I've used, that is legal, right? To use in game, but it's just like allocating different portions of the bat and making different portions of the bat a little bit thicker, a little bit juicier to catch the ball. And again, there's going to be loopholes for everything, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. The Dodgers, this is completely unrelated, but the Dodgers found a loophole in terms of the contract situation, right? Whoever found this originally, the torpedo bats, they found a loophole, if you want to classify as that, because there's no rules stating, any which way for these torpedo bats to be, legal versus illegal. I think the only thing is like 2.6 inches, something of that nature on the bat. The logistics of it, I don't quite know, but some rule of 2.6 inches or something like that. It doesn't bother me at all. Listen, the playing field is going to be level. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure how much of an advantage this gives the hitters, but if it does, right? That's good for the game anyways.
Correct.
That's good for the game anyways, right? I feel like pitchers have a decent size advantage as it is. The game would be good and would be better off with having the hitters have an advantage for once at this point. So listen, I'm not moved by it. I'm not moved by the Yankees, to be honest, either. I know that we're going to be covering the Mets here in this pregame, but I'm not moved by the Yankees. Look at the ballpark they're playing in. Look at the team they're playing against. I mean, they just got also beat down by the Royals 10-0. So it's
exactly.
not, it's a non-story for me. It's a non-story for me. But I do like, and I can appreciate, I think it's kind of funny that Jazz Chisholm took some time out of his day to go and defend the torpedo bats on his X
Good
account.
for him.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
the biggest fan of Jazz Chisholm. I think he thinks he's better than he is, but he's absolutely right in the tweet that he did. Like, defend himself, defend his teammates. He done nothing wrong, and the team did nothing wrong. I wasn't even mad at the Yankees. Like, I was at the game, the pregame party, before one of the games. It was a Friday. And I'm just sitting there like, who cares, guys? Like, people are talking about, like, who? All right, like, it was already like 14-2 or 3 or whatever the hell it was. I'm like, so what? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Hey, the Braves are 0-4, by the way. Should we talk about that more than the damn Yankees? Like, that's more important than what we're doing. The Phillies, I think, just won, so that's what I want to talk about. So, and the Marlins are in first place. So, so they're 3-1, and they had 3 walk-off wins, in their series. So,
hold on one second, Rob.
Yeah, what's up?
That's crazy.
What, the
Jurickson
Marlins?
Profar got suspended for 80 games for violating the PED policy.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Big. That's big.
Damn.
That was their big acquisition this year. Damn, remember,
that
we
was
both
deep.
wanted them.
We both wanted him too. I like Jurickson Profar a lot. I've always was lobbying for him, but that's crazy. Wow. Especially coupled to the fact that they, listen, the Braves are always a notorious slow starting team. Let's not forget that. I mean, they really are. But That's a pretty big hit for that lineup,
That's
to be
big,
honest with you.
especially with Acuna going to be out for at least, until May. With Spencer Strider, who knows when he's coming back? Probably May as well. They already got a couple of injuries, and again, they lost Max Fried. A lot of people aren't talking about that. If Braves fans, if you listen to them, they're not completely satisfied with this roster either, and they weren't happy with what the front office did. So they couldn't afford that. That's hard to do. I know they still got all these guys that we always the Rileys of the world, the Olsons and Albies and all those guys. You lost a catcher before the season. There's a lot going on, so that's rough. But you know what? It's baseball. Oh, too bad. We had no bullpen for the entire year with all the injuries we had. So I don't wish injury on anybody, or that's PED suspension. That's insane.
I'm not gonna get into the logistics and the science of the actual substance that a couple of people are reporting on X. That's John Heyman. If you want to go and look at that, he actually named the substance that he tested positive for. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, especially for the Braves. And I don't know what else to say about that. But that is huge news in terms of the NL East and a upfront division rival losing a pretty damn good player, to be honest.
Yeah, and this is what the Mets have to do. They got to take full advantage of, and this is why April is so important, especially like a team like the Braves that have started out 0-4, and look at the West already, the NL West, right? The Padres are red hot, the Dodgers are red hot. So again, we're talking about the wild card. It's already game changing what the Padres are already starting off to do in April. Not even April, in the first series of the year. This is why April's so important. This is why losing series like we lost in Houston is a problem, because they easily could have been a 2 out of 3 win or a sweep. And that would have helped us a little bit, because you don't have to worry about, a game here or there because you did so well in April. But the Mets got to take full advantage of a bad Marlins team, regardless of what their record says. They did have 3 walk-off wins. It's baseball. Anybody can win. But can anybody name more than 4 guys on this team from the Marlins? Like, completely different team from last year. Besides, Alcantara and, one of De La Cruz, 1 or 2 other guys. That's it. Like, it's a completely different team. So the Mets got to take full advantage of this series. I would say, besides one of the pitchers in this series, the Mets have the pitching advantage besides Alcantara. So they got to take it full advantage of it. And, Chris, you brought it up earlier. Brandon Nimmo in the cleanup spot. When I had a feeling Lindor wasn't going to start today. Why is it Nimmo leading off? I know you tweeted it. You put a tweet out there about that earlier today. This was the perfect opportunity to get Brandon Nimmo out of the spots where he has the worst numbers over the last year and looks terrible so far in the first 3 games of the season. He's been batting 4th to 5th in every game. He has been terrible. Striking out, over swinging, trying to hit home runs. The Brandon Nimmo that I don't like, and I'm sorry. Maybe you disagree. I know you're more of that this type of approach for most players, but I just don't like this type of Brandon Nimmo. Like, I'd rather have 3 or 4 less home runs a year when his average is in the 260 range, 270 range, and walking more. Because again, look, it's hard for him to be the 4th to 5th starter, a 5th guy in a lineup, and talking about the Brandon Nimmo of old, because he's batting 4th to 5th because the Mets put him in this position because, whoa, he can hit 20 home runs. So everybody gets excited. This Brandon Nimmo, I don't like, and I don't think it's very good, Chris. I don't.
Well, I'm going to counter that with the reason why he's batting there in the first place is because Lindor moved to the leadoff spot, right?
And Juan Soto too now. That's another issue with this year.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So, like, if you would propose any other position to bat Brandon Nimmo in the order, I would say put him in the 2 hole. Yep. But Juan Soto has to bat 2, according to everybody, right? So again, that wouldn't work out. So where are you going to put him? You're not going to bat him 7, 8, 9. You're not going to really bat him 6. Well, he still belongs in the top 5, and that's 100%. The dilemma.
Well, that's the problem. But you know what? There was no Juan Soto last year. You know what I'm saying? And
Correct.
they put
Sure.
Brandon Nimmo 4th and 5th almost every single time, occasionally 3. And his worst numbers of the year were in those spots. And look, I understand why you can't do it this year because of Lindor. You're not moving him. And Mendoza from like day one of spring training basically said it. Soto's batting second, which I completely understand. Now, but it's hard. You can't bat Nimmo. I mean, could you bat Nimmo 9th? Wouldn't be you know what? I wouldn't be against it, to be quite honest with you. I think it takes a ton of pressure off of him. I think this is the problem. I think Brandon Nimmo becomes the player that, like, the best part of Brandon Nimmo got his contract based on what he's done throughout his career in his final year. Even though he hit a little bit more home runs, he was still doing Brandon Nimmo type thing. His walks were still very good. His on base was still pretty good. The average was still was coming down a little bit, but was still up there. Everything's down across the board that he's good at. And Nimmo is a gap-to-gap hitter and an on-base machine. Taking that type of batter and that hitter away, I think ultimately hurts this team because now when Soto gets on, now we're going to leave it up to Pete Alonso, who, oh, by the way, has left a lot of men left on base in the first 3 games as well. He's had better at-bats, but Pete Alonso is not a single sitter. Right? We can't have Pete Alonso and Juan Soto, regardless if they're 2 or 3. You know, Chris, I know you talked about Pete Alonso being 2, Soto being 3, or, you know, vice versa, or even the cleanup. Juan Soto's getting on base because they're not afraid of Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is probably not getting great pitches to hit because Brandon Nimmo's behind him, and Vientos is struggling at the moment. I think he's batting nothing, or like 086. So that is the issue right now. And the fact is, they're not, you know, if you look at their at-bats, Juan Soto's not really getting a lot of pitches to hit. And I know that was your big thing about the lineup before the season started, but nobody's doing the job anyway. Yeah, nobody's doing the job anyway. So, you know, regardless of where you move these guys around, it's an issue.
But the thing is that whoever's in that 2 hole is going to get better pitches to hit because they're not going to fiddle around with any sort of off-speed pitches. They want to get that guy out before they have to face Juan Soto with nobody on base. So whoever is in that 2 hole is going to benefit greatly, whether it's Vientos or whether it's Nimmo. And that's the entire point that I've been trying to say, because this lineup, you know, if you're batting Juan Soto too, the guys right behind him are going to need to do damage because they're going to pitch around him almost every single time. They'll make a mistake and he'll hit it out of the park just like he did in Houston, right? In the middle game. But other than that, the game plan is simple, especially if Francisco Lindor is going to be, you know, off to a slow start like he usually is, right? He's going to pick it up. I have no doubt about that. But if he's off to a slow start, that's easy money for opposing pitchers to get around that lineup and just face Pete Alonso with Juan Soto on first base. Why risk anything? But if you're telling me that Brandon Nimmo, right, can go ahead, or even Vientos, whoever you want, because I think Vientos is a great 2-hole hitter when he's getting fed fastballs, or would be getting fed fastballs before Juan Soto. If they're getting on base now, let's say Lindor gets out, and you're talking about, and this is obviously in the first inning because it can shake out any single way, you know, in the second time through, third time through, fourth time through, but I'm talking about first inning run production, which is, you know, not the end all be all because it's such a small sample size. But again, in a perfect world, even if Lindor gets out, you have another guy that has the opportunity to get on base for Juan Soto. Because then if they want to pitch around Juan Soto and put first and second with 1 out, at that point, there's nothing you can't duplicate Juan Soto and put him 2 times in the order. You know what I mean? Sure. Someone is going to have to be behind Juan Soto and reap the benefits of batting behind Juan Soto and having him on base. Nobody's done it just so far just yet.
But here's the other issue, right? But obviously Juan Soto has been the only one, you know, doing something, you know, in the first 3 games. But it's not like these guys didn't have opportunities. They didn't get the job done. They had
Correct.
people, you know, if they would have got these runs in, we wouldn't have been complaining about this, right? That's the issue, right? Alonso has had, I think it's 7 men left on base. Nimmo is in double digits. Vientos has 5. There's your problem right there. That's nearly the majority of the guys on base throughout the series. Those top 3 guys in Alonso, Nimmo, and Vientos have left the majority on. Yeah, Juan Soto left 2, Lindor left 3, I believe. But all in all, your top 3, 4, 5 hitters have left almost 16, 17 guys left on base. you're not going to win that way. I don't care what the two guys at the top of the order do. And look, what I have moved Juan Soto around just to, spice things up. Today was a perfect day to do it. You could have done that. I could see Marte batting 2, Nimmo leading off or something like that, and then go Soto 3 and then push it down, make that lineup a little bit deeper at the bottom. But there's something about a lot of people liking that, and I'm one of them, Soto and Alonso 2-3. But again, if they come through and look, Alonso has not been bad. Like I want to make sure everybody understands that. I'm not saying Alonso has been bad, but when you are on that run producing, part of the lineup, and he's right in the middle of it, smack dead in the middle, a lot of these walks aren't helping when guys are already on base in front of you because you're only putting it over to the next guy. And unfortunately, it's been Nimmo a lot of the times that, and again, it's not that Pete Alonso hasn't been done a good job. His philosophy has changed hitting. We all seen it. But I don't need him to be a slap hitter either. I don't need him to, take all these walks. I think there's some pitches, probably in the last 2 games, where I think Pete Alonso could have drove the ball. Again, you can't do nothing, when the guy catches, and jumps and hits the wall. You can't do nothing about that. You just tip your cap. But it seems like there was pitches to hit that he could have drove, and he laid off those and took a walk in that at bat, or had soft contact on a pitch that probably could have let go, but then try to do a little bit too much. But he hasn't been bad, and I do like the opposite away approach and not swinging at that garbage pitch on the outside corner. He's been taking a lot of those pitches, but seemingly in that same aspect of what he's been doing at bat, he's been taking pitches where I think he could drive that ball at least into the gap, especially right center. He's been leaving a lot of fastballs on the outside corner that he's been taking, and maybe that's just first couple of games of the year, not seeing a ball, not looking for that, looking middle in, but he's got to do a little bit better because at the moment, we need him to drive in those runs when Nimmo is basically leaving the brunt of these runs on base, and it's killing us.
And where and when do those fastballs usually come in the count to Pete Alonso?
Early.
And so for everybody saying, I hate swinging first pitch, this is the problem that I have with people saying that, because I'm a proponent. If you get a good first pitch, that's probably the best pitch you're going to get in an at-bat. And I'm not saying that walks are useless out of Pete Alonso, right? Because we've seen him do it countless of times in that Houston series. I like that he's laying off the low and out pitch, right? That he was swinging at last season, right? And kind of passing that baton to the next hitter. But again, the pitcher's going to try to get ahead of him. If Juan Soto's on first base with 1 out, Pete Alonso's going to get a fastball, presumably, try to steal a strike from him, and then it's going to be a steady diet of off-speed pitches after that. So that's what I'm saying. Get a pitch to hit early in the count. Don't miss it. Yep. And, if you hit it right at somebody, just like Brandon Nimmo did with bases loaded 2 outs later on in the ball game, because he smacked that baseball. He was planning, that was his game plan, to attack the first pitch because he wanted to, jump all over Brian Abreu in terms of surprise, like a sneak attack kind of. And he successfully did it with the process because he hit a liner right to center field, but it was right at somebody. And sometimes in a game of baseball, you just simply can't help that, where exactly it's hit.
Right. Yeah. So. Like in the moment at the game, I was annoyed because I was getting the vibe of the crowd, the vibe of the Mets fans around us and stuff like that. Like it seemed like Abreu was struggling and he was fighting there. He didn't have great control, and I completely understood. Like after, I was a little bit upset at post game, but I understood the logic in what you just said with Pete Alonso. Like that, his best opportunity to probably get that fastball that he can drive is probably early in the count. And, from there, what are you going to do? But I was mad in the moment. But after the game and starting to think about it, and even after the postgame, talking to the guys at the bar, we're like, it seemed wrong at the moment. But when you're looking for that pitch and it's early on, could he have had a long at bat and eventually worked the walk? Maybe that run would have came in that way. Maybe, who knows? We can't predict something that didn't happen. But I was mad in the moment, but completely understand after the fact that it wasn't the wrong decision for Pete Alonso. He was trying to jump on a fastball after the meeting on the mound. You see that a lot in baseball. He didn't get the job done. He hit the ball. He put the bat on the ball, but it wasn't enough. unfortunately, it just it was a frustrating series.
It's baseball. It's
It
baseball.
really
Things just
is.
didn't roll the right way, to be honest. I mean, there's some things that just didn't happen for the Mets. I mean, the Luis Torrens situation was a prime example of that. And you know what? That's baseball. We move on. We got one win in Houston in a ballpark that the Mets just simply can't win in, it seems like. To be honest with you, that's their second win in over a decade in that ballpark. And you know what? That's a tough Astros team. They're going to be contenders in the AL, right? There's a handful of teams that are considered contenders in the AL alongside the Yankees. They're going to be one of them, and you move on. The Mets are going to be fine. This offense is going to be fine. I think that we're all just panicking for no reason. I think this offense is going to be fine.
Well, we wanted baseball back, and now we got it, and you know it's Armageddon, it's the apocalypse. But I wanted to bring up something because WFAN brought it up today. A lot of people on X, you know, when you have a day off, and you know you're kind of in limbo here, so everybody's talking. That play, all the games mixed together for me, so you can remind me what game it was when Brandon Nimmo hit into that. I think it was he hit into that double play, and Pete Alonso was running the second, and he ran right into the tag
Yeah.
and made an easy double play. First thing I thought of, I'm like, Pete, you got to be smarter than that. You got to stop and let the guy chase you because he might make a mistake. And a lot of people started to talk about that today or even yesterday for that matter. That's where, look, Pete Alonso's not going to be a great base runner, so I'm not going to go nuts on that. But it was a crucial part of the game where maybe not, it could have still been an easy double play. The fielder could have done his job, but we've seen it so many times where fielders panic and don't know what to do with the ball. And maybe Pete Alonso would have gotten to the rundown. If I'm not mistaken, it was a guy on third in that, or a guy on first. It was first and second, if I'm not mistaken. When
first and second.
You know, and you know that could have made the difference because that was when there was nobody out. It was first and second, nobody out, and the guy got the third. You should have tried to get into a rundown. Maybe you know they would panic. Maybe the guy on third would have tried to go home, but you know I'm not killing Pete Alonso because it all happened quickly. But it's little things like that can, you know, have the defense make a mistake. You have to be smart in that aspect, in that situation. You play baseball all of your life. We've all played baseball all your life. We know what to do. And sometimes you get a, you know, you get a mind block, you know, you're just like, oh shit, look what it is. Because you saw his face. He realized what he did after he got tagged. Like, oh, what the hell did I do?
Yeah. He knew. He didn't. The thing is that he thought that Brendan Rodgers, I believe is their second baseman, was playing deeper than he actually was.
Yeah.
So he thought that he's going to have to run this out no matter what. He might as well just go to second. He didn't realize that Brendan Rodgers was basically right behind him. And you saw him like at the last moment, he planted his foot in the ground and he wanted to stop to induce that, but he just couldn't. It was already too late. He had committed. So I just think that he was unaware of how close Brendan Rodgers was to him and how fast he was charging that baseball. Because I think that if Pete Alonso had seen out of his peripheral that, you know, this guy's coming in hard, he would have stopped immediately. And you would have been talking about a situation that was first and third with one out because Nimmo would have been inevitably safe. Or he throws the ball to first base and then maybe Pete Alonso just has all his momentum killed and it ends up being a double play anyways. I don't know how it shakes out, but I definitely agree with you 100%. That was not great for the Mets. Not great for the Mets.
All right, so let's get a little bit into this lineup now that we're really focusing in on today on the 6:40 start. Got about 25 minutes or so until game time. David S., why is Marte hitting leadoff? Makes no sense. I'm assuming, David, you understand that Lindor's wife had a baby. That's why he's not in the lineup. He's on the bench, but what I think you're asking is it makes no sense why Marte's leading off. I think we can all agree with that. I think we both have our opinions of who should lead off. I mean, the only one that makes sense at the moment is Nimmo, based on Lindor not being in the lineup and Soto not moving out of the 2 spot for the time being. Yeah, David, I don't know, Chris, if you have an answer to why Marte might be leading off and what is the thinking for Marte leading off. I mean, you know, first I had to double check. I'm like, is there a lefty on the mound for the Marlins? But there's not. So that was the only thing I thought of when I saw the lineup. And I'm like, wait a second. The Marlins aren't pitching no lefties. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? So what are your thoughts of why do you think Mendoza put Marte in the leadoff spot in today's game?
You know what? I mean, it's a one-off because I don't think Francisco Lindor is going to be out of the lineup twice in a row. But my bigger question is that, you know, in addition to that is where's Jesse Winker? Because they love these matchups, right? They love these matchups. You know, where's Jesse Winker? And that's my immediate thought, because then at that point, then you would have to go with Brandon Nimmo if Marte's not in the lineup. I mean, you can say Acuna, but I don't think I'm ready to go there yet. I am happy to see both Beatty and Luis Angel Acuna in this lineup because, again, nobody's really seizing that opportunity offensively, especially. But that's a discussion for maybe in a little bit. We'll get to it. But I don't really know. I don't really know, to be honest.
It has to be numbers because, like, Marte must have
Marte,
really good numbers against them.
let me look that up. Let me look that up.
Yeah.
Actually, let me see what his splits are.
Let me just talk about with Beatty and Acuna in the lineup. That is interesting. I don't like them back to back. They haven't hit. They're strikeout machines at the moment, and I don't like that back to back. I mean, why is Luis Torrens? I know Luis Torrens has a double. He looked better with the bat in the Houston series, but 6, 7, 8, just oh my god, like it doesn't make me feel good at all. But I don't know. Nobody has really took in the range yet in the case of second base with Beatty and Acuna. Acuna has played better defensively. Beatty hasn't done nothing spectacular, but he hasn't made any big mistakes defensively. Acuna made that one on opening day, but also made a really nice play. He had that really 12-pitch walk at bat that led to a walk on opening day. That was excellent to see. But other than that, nobody has really done a good job overall. Acuna has been a little bit. I mean, I guess you could say Beatty's leading the defensive test right now because Acuna does have an error and Beatty does not. But that's an overreaction, to be quite honest. I don't think anybody has the lead right now, as Chris just said. So, Chris, you got it?
Yeah, I mean, it's middle of the road numbers. I mean, he's got a 729 OPS, 269 batting average, and a 407 on base percentage. I mean, him batting in the second hole, 3, 4 in his career, I'm looking at, right? The career splits is a lot better than the leadoff. And also, he doesn't have good numbers against Cal Quantrill, as Emmy's asking in the chat. He's batting a $125 off of Quantrill in his career. So I don't really know. It's kind of curious to me in terms of why this is actually the case tonight. Maybe Mendoza is just going with the gut feeling. Maybe he's like, Starling Marte needs to get some action. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I guess he'll be asked about it, whether it's in the pregame or the postgame, definitely. And I guess we'll get the answer then, but I'm stumped. I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe it is a gut feeling. Maybe he just didn't like certain guys at bats. Like maybe he didn't like Winker the way he looked. I don't know. Maybe Winker is dealing with something we just don't know about that. That could. I think that's the only possibility. I really think if Marte wasn't in this lineup, Nimmo would have probably let off. But Marte's not a power hitter. Marte's a singles machine nowadays, and eventually hits a double every now and then. So I think what Mendoza's trying to see from the leadoff spot today is somebody that can get a base hit, and Marte is a guy that can hit the ball and get a base hit. And he has a little bit of speed. I think that's the only thing he's looking for at the leadoff spot. And with Nimmo looking terrible, there isn't really anybody else. I mean, you could have put Luis Angel Acuna to lead off. That would have been very interesting. I think we would have both been okay with that, especially with his speed. He did steal a base in the series against Houston. But overall with this lineup, and I want to bring up with Brett Beatty and Luis Angel Acuna just a little bit more because they are both in the lineup today. This is probably very rare. We'll see them in the lineup together without an injury. Because Lindor's not in the lineup because his wife had a baby, Acuna's getting the start at shortstop, Beatty's at second base. They haven't really played much together as a double play tandem. How the Mets already had trouble developing double plays in the Houston series. Haven't looked great turning double plays, even with Acuna there and even with Beatty at second base. What do you expect? Because maybe they did this. They worked a lot, in the backfields or before and after games. I showed you a picture of on opening day on Friday that Beatty and Acuna and Lindor were working on double play drills and all that. That was great to see, but they weren't doing it together. Beatty was with second base with Acuna, and that was basically how they worked out. They weren't together doing double plays. So this is going to be interesting. This could be key here. This can be a moment of where a double play can end the inning, and it doesn't, and it could lead to runs for the Marlins. What are your thoughts with them batting back-to-back, number one, and them being the double play tandem today against the Marlins?
Well, again, you're talking about, righty, lefty, righty, I guess. I don't know, man, to be honest with you.
It's a weird lineup.
Back-to-back is, but what are you going to do at that point? Like, who are you going to bat sixth? I mean, Beatty, Acuna, Siri. I mean, I think the options are really limited here, to be honest. I think we're nitpicking at this point because, I mean, honestly, Luis Torrens, if you're asking me anybody that looked like competent offensively outside of Juan Soto, I'm like, all right, maybe Luis Torrens gave us some good at-bats in Houston, but, it's kind of like the options are slim. Let's be real. And the Mets have no other choice defensively for a double play duo up the middle with Lindor coming off the bench. So this is what the Mets have to work with. Brett Baty actually looked pretty decent at second base in my estimation in Houston. I was pleasantly, I wasn't surprised, but because I'm like,
his footwork
second base defense was that.
I was watching Baty a lot the last two games. His footwork a lot better than what I've seen in spring.
Pretty good.
To be quite honest with you.
Yeah, he's not bad defensively, and I'm like, the only reason why I'm hesitating giving Brett Baty a shot, every day, out of spring training when we were talking about that before is because of his bat, which still remains true, by the way. He's terrible. He looks terrible.
Ball hard to first base. Other than that, he's looked terrible.
No, seriously. So the defense is never an issue with me. I don't think the defense is going to be an issue tonight up the middle. Maybe we come on the post game and we're singing a different tune. I'm like, I was totally wrong about that, but I don't think the defense is going to be the issue. This team needs better at bats, Rob.
I agree.
And so this 7 through 9, if you're Cal Quantrill or anybody else in this Marlins bullpen looking at that, you're like, all right, we made it through the better part of the order. I mean, maybe if you want to lump Luis Torrens into that category, okay, but this lineup has to get going. The pitching was tremendous in Houston. Another thing that we didn't talk about was the decision to leave Griffin Canning in against Yordan Alvarez instead of going lefty-lefty. There's two sides of the fence to that argument as well. But overall, I expect David Peterson to really make a statement. And I'm watching David Peterson closely because I'm like, this is the guy that needs to have a fantastic stretch of games early on this season to really set this tone for the rotation. I was pleasantly surprised with Tyler McGill. I'm sure you were too. And I was more than pleasantly surprised with Griffin Canning. But we need production out of David Peterson. And I'm thoroughly just excited to watch him on that mound today. But yeah, this 6 through 9, if they can just get on base and flip the lineup over, and I say flip the lineup over as if we have Francisco Lindor in the leadoff spot, but it's Starlin Marte, they're going to need to scratch off runs somehow, some way. Again, if they need to resort to small ball, if the gap-to-gap home run thing just simply isn't what they can do early on this season, that's fine, Rob, but they got to play small ball and they got to do the fundamentals and get the fundamentals right that they didn't get right in Houston. So we'll see. The Marlins are definitely a team that are pesky continuously, regardless of whoever is on their roster, because it seems to have a high turnover rate every single year as they try to navigate who's the mainstay versus who's going, right? You got to take care of business in Miami, man. You got to take care of business.
Yeah.
Have to before coming back home.
I agree. 2 out of 3 at least.
Yeah, at least. You know what I mean? At least. This is kind of like a get right series to tell the fan base, listen, shut up. We're good. We'll be fine. You know what I mean? And they need to treat that as such. So it starts with the offense. Who we got game 2? Is it Senga? Is it Peterson Senga?
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
Peterson Senga.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peterson Senga. I mean, listen, take those two, then we'll talk about a sweep on day 3 of this series, and then that's it, man. There's only so much that we can analyze based off of what we have right now in terms of Baty and Acuna playing, hitting back-to-back. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle at the bottom of the order, objectively. And we've known that probably since spring training ended. I'm not saying that McNeil's going to turn this around or Alvarez would turn this around, because I think the bottom of the order is capable and competent without them. And I don't think that the production is like that far off. But, if we get another game like we got in game 3 of Houston tonight, maybe I'm gonna start to miss Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil just a little bit, as crazy as that sounds. But listen, I'm not worried until the game goes final tonight. And I'm hoping that we can come on the post game and just talk about an offensive barrage. That's what I'm hoping for.
That would be nice. And I want to bring up something we're supposed to talking about, because he's bringing up Jose Siri. No, I don't know where you heard people said he was going to have huge numbers. Nobody, at least I didn't say that, and I don't remember Chris saying about huge numbers. Right?
Oh.
He's hit 18 home runs in his career. All right, he's a guy with, you would think he would see a little bit more better pitching in the 9 spot because of the top of the order. Again, the top of the order is not doing anything, and he only played 2 games. Oh, well, 1 game technically, but again, we have to understand this because Tyrone Taylor is on this team. He was playing every day with the Tampa Bay Rays. This is an adjustment for Jose Siri as well. With him not probably playing every game, even though he's getting another start today, and he's going to platoon with Tyrone Taylor, he's not going to get the amount of at-bats that I would like to see him get. Now, unfortunately, I didn't think Nimmo was going to play the field as much as he has the first 3 games, which is good. I mean, I'm glad Nimmo's healthy, but I thought Siri was going to get the majority of the playing time. Maybe he still will, because I think he is dynamic. He saw what he can do on a base path with his speed. He can change a game like that with his speed, and it gave the Mets one of the runs, or the only run of the last game. So I think Jose Siri is going to get more playing time. I think he can be an 18 to 20 home run guy. Chris, I'm not sure if but we talked about this. I think he can be that guy because he's shown it, but he was a starter with the Rays. I don't know him playing 110 games instead of 140 games and having, 50 less at-bats is going to make a difference of him not showing the power he can show in that 9 spot, Chris. I mean, I don't remember us saying anything about huge numbers. We all know his average is not going to be good. He strikes out a ton. He's not much in the walks category. He's a guy that can hit the ball over the wall around 18 to 20 home runs and provide speed on the base path when he actually gets on.
Yeah, and I don't know, if Explosive was talking about, I don't know who said that, to be honest, but
people are high on Siri.
Gonna...
Like, people did like the trade. Like, let's be honest about that. But
well, of course,
maybe I missed it, but maybe somebody else said it and I just didn't see it. Maybe you heard it from or saw it from somebody.
I didn't see it. All I said was him trying to reduce that strikeout rate. That's all I said personally. And I'm still waiting for that to be true. I mean, time will tell, but I do think that it's going to be a split between Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri.
That's going to hurt Siri.
I'm curious. I'm curious with game 1 and Mendoza giving the nod to Tyrone Taylor. I'm curious if the Mets actually favor Tyrone Taylor over Jose Siri, where I thought, and I think you thought, it would be vice versa. So I don't know, to be honest, but if we're talking about Jose Siri being the make or break of this lineup, then we've got bigger issues to talk about.
We've talked about this. If 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 isn't doing the job, of course look. People are talking about Siri already. Everybody's bringing up Beatty and Acuna. You know why? Because the top of the order is not doing their job, and the guys that have been coming up in certain bigger situations have been the bottom of the order because the middle of the order hasn't come through. And Beatty and Acuna and Siri and Torrens, for that matter, Winker have been coming up with guys on base. And again, if we're looking for those guys to be the run producers, this team would be a juggernaut. Like, it would be that good. But I'm not expecting Torrens, Beatty, Acuna, Siri, at least right now, especially Beatty and Acuna. I'm not expecting, Pete Alonso numbers or Nimmo numbers or Soto numbers or even Vientos or Lindor numbers. I'm not. They're role players, guys. As much as everybody likes Acuna, as much as some might still believe in Brett Beatty, those guys are role players. Acuna is not the run producer that we might think he can be in a year or two, maybe even this year. Right? That's why he's batting 6th, 7th, 8th, or 7th, 8th, and 9th. These are role players. Right now, Acuna hasn't shown anything this year. Brett Beatty hasn't shown anything. These guys are role players. If we're going to count on the bottom of the order to get the job done, we're talking exactly what the problem was last year. And the Mets not winning many games, Chris. I think that's the way to sum it up.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think it's just like game 4, if what conclusions can we really draw?
Only game 4? Jeez.
At least we're not 0-4.
Games, yeah. Better than last year already. Woo-hoo.
Exactly. So, you know what I mean? So I think that no matter what the Mets do tonight, you know, just like I stated, I wasn't going to jump to conclusions after the first series, just because it's game 4, as explosive as saying in the chat, if the Mets come out and jump, out to like a 5 or 6 run lead, etc., which would be nice. We can't really say that this offense is going to continue that trend. I mean, it has to be a trend at the end of the day. And so that's why I like to analyze these games on a single game basis. But, when we do a quarter of the season review, right? Or we do a mid-season review, then we can really be like, okay, this is who's been contributing, this is who isn't, and this is where this team is lacking. So that's the beauty of baseball. I mean, you can just really cut it up into quarters and really get the perfect sample size out of it. But you know what? We're going to come on the post game. We're going to talk about this offense. They either come through or they don't, because the games matter. April's tomorrow. So you're talking about a stretch of games that you got to take advantage of the schedule, because soon it's not going to be April. Soon it's not going to even be May. It's going to be June. You're going to be in a gauntlet of games, as we talked about.
The
So
third,
take
the third
advantage, man.
easiest schedule in baseball is for the Mets in April. So they better take advantage of it, because again, May gets a little bit harder. June is the hardest month of the year. You got to take advantage of this month. Again, we don't know how teams are going to be. It's only 3 games into the season, 4 for some, maybe 5 for some. But you got to take advantage. You got to destroy this Marlins team. They're not good. This is not a roster that you should be scared of at all. David Peterson should dominate. The Mets have the pitching matchup today. They have the better lineup. There is no excuses to not take 2 out of 3. I mean, we should be greedy and want a sweep and should be asking for a sweep. But again, when it's the second series of the year, it's baseball. Things happen. It's a weird situation. Lindor's wife had a baby. Like, shit happens. But when you got David Peterson, Kodai Senga, and Clay Holmes, and these are supposed to be a top 3 pitchers in your rotation against a Marlins team that nobody's heard of half these guys, you better take 2 out of 3. And you know what? I want to be greedy. I'm going to say it. Sweep this fucking team. I'm not angry. It was just a frustrating series where you played a very good Astros team and you had every chance of winning each one of those games. They should have came out of that series 2 out of 3 and probably could have swept the way they were holding down the Astros lineup. But they didn't. They lost 2 out of 3. They should be a little bit angry today, right? Did you see Juan Soto's face after each of these games? He wasn't extremely happy in game 2 that they won, but he wasn't happy. And I want to see more guys like that, right? Juan Soto is a big competitor. Juan Soto is a guy that gets angry when you lose. And he might take it out on the Marlins. He might go crazy in this series. But where is the anger from these other guys? Where's the anger from Nimmo? Where's the anger from Alonso? Because those are the guys that have been here a while now. These are the guys that, Alonso makes $30 million a year. There's no more excuses for him. Nimmo's making a big payday. Where are these guys? Get mad. I know it's only 3 games in the season, but you look exactly how you started last year, and that's not a good look, especially with the high expectations of this team and with this organization as a whole. When there's expectations, they don't show it. And it's only 3 games, but these guys need to step up. Yeah, Chris, you going to say something?
No, I'm just looking at, because I was curious about the points that I think MEZ made way earlier in the stream, and also Explosive is making in terms of the Mets and their production level at each ballpark. Because again, the Mets don't like playing in Houston, and their offense showed why they don't like playing in Houston over the past decade. And they didn't take advantage of that short fence to left field. And I'm just looking at the numbers, and I can't tell off of Baseball Reference like what year interval this is. It's saying 20 games against the Yankees, so I'm assuming it goes back like a couple years, a handful of years at least. But Citi Field has always been like the median for the Mets in terms of their OPS. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting, like looking at these splits by ballpark. And I just want to say that I'm not going to get into what the splits are, because again, I'd rather just know exactly what timeline this is, because this team is just vastly different than what it was 5-6 years ago. But there's something to it. I mean, there's something to it with the Mets and their continuous struggles at certain ballparks. And that's what I'll just leave it at, to be honest.
Yeah. So to finish it up here, let's just talk about the pitcher really quick. What do you expect from David Peterson? First start of the year, he's facing a lineup that's at least what we're looking. I mean, they played decently in their first series, but it was against the Pirates, against very good pitching. I think the Mets have the pitching matchup. Cal Quantrill is an interesting pitcher, but nothing special. What do you expect from David Peterson today? Because I mean, Mendoza let Griffin ride a little bit, McGill get a little bit further than he probably could have, even though Mendoza took McGill out, I think, at the perfect time. Left Cannon in there a little bit too long for my comfort. What do you think Mendoza is going to do with David Peterson his first start of the year?
Are you talking about like pitch count or like?
Yeah, just in general. Like, what do you expect from Peterson, and what do you think Mendoza is looking at when it comes to their plan to take out Peterson based on pitch count or whatever else you're thinking?
So the one thing that I want to watch from David Peterson is his fastball command, because that's something that Clay Holmes struggled with, and that forced him to throw a lot more secondary pitches, which the Houston Astros lineup got more adjusted to as the game went on. So that's going to be the changeup for me. So watching his fastball command, but also setting up the fastball with the changeup, which was a really good pitch for him last season when he played. I'm expecting at least 5 good innings from David Peterson, to be honest. I think that Mendoza's been pretty consistent in the range of 85 to 89 pitches. So I think that is a lot to work with if you're David Peterson. But I'm curious in terms of how sharp his changeup's going to be. I'm not going to discredit the Marlins. I mean, they just had what are they, 3-1 on a handful of walk-off wins. They are a pesky team, even if they don't have the big name players. They're a pesky team. We all know it. We've all seen it in years prior. So good fastball, good command of the fastball to set up that changeup, and then the rest will follow. I think it's going to be a good performance out of him. If we're taking a look at everything remaining consistent with the starting pitching in Houston, you can expect around 5 innings. We're not expecting a scoreless ball game from David Peterson by any means. That's not what we're expecting, because we would like to see the offense take care of it from there. But that's what I really think that Mendoza is looking out for. Can he set his changeup up with good command of his sinker and his four-seamer? That's the name of the game. And by the way, one thing that I talked about in the postgame in Game 3 with Griffin Canning is that the Mets pitching coaches have made it a very big point for Griffin Canning, especially, to be off-speed dominant, knowing that he's not going to overpower anybody with his fastball. He throws at 92, 93 miles per hour, 94 if he's lucky. He was feeding the Astros lineup a heavy dosage, especially with that slider. And he established dominance in spring training with that slider, and he looked pretty damn good against the Houston Astros lineup throwing against. So we'll see what the game plan is for David Peterson, but definitely something to monitor in terms of the actual pitch distribution of New York Mets pitchers. Let's win a damn ball game.
Absolutely. Let's win that ball game. Mets are 1-2, 3-1 against the Marlins. The Marlins are 3-1. So Game 4 is just about to start in about a minute, guys. So later today, when game's over, me and Chris will be doing a post game. Hopefully, we're talking about a Mets win. But make sure you tune in, guys. If you stick around on my channel, I have it directed to go to the post game right after this show. So hit that like button early. Chris, I don't know if you redirected it on your channel. If you did, hit that like button as well. And we'll see you later today on the post-game show. Enjoy the Mets game, guys. Let's go Mets. And we'll see you later tonight, guys, on the post-game show. Good night, guys.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of